As a kid, I spent my summers with my grandparents on their ranch in Texas. I helped fix windmills, vaccinate cattle, and do other chores. My grandparents, we also watched soap opera every afternoon, especially Days of Our Lives. My grandparents belonged to Caravan Club, a group of ice cream trailer owners who travel together around the US and Canada. At every few summers, we would join the caravan. We'd hitch up the airstream trailer to my grandfather's car, and off we'd go. Aligned with 300 other airstream owners, airstream adventures. On one particular trip, I was about 10 years old. I was rolling around in the big bench seat in the back of the car. My grandfather was driving. My grandmother had the passenger seat. She smoked throughout these trips, and I hated the smell. At that age, I take any excuse to make estimate and do minor arithmetic. I'd categorize gas mileage, figure out useless statistics on things like grocery spending. I've been hearing other campaign about smoking. I can't remember the details, but basically the ad said, every puff of a cigarette takes some number of minutes off of your life. I think it might have been 2 minutes per puff. At any rate, I decided to do the math to my grandmother. I estimate the number of cigarettes per day, estimate the number of puffs per cigarette, and so on. When I satisfied that I come up with a reasonable number, I poked my head in front of the car and tapped my grandmother on the shoulder and proudly proclaimed, "At 2 minutes per puff, you've taken 9 years off of your life." I had a very vivid memory of what happened next. But it was not what I had expected. I expected to be applauded for my cleverness and my arithmetic skills. "Jeff, you're so smart. You had to have made some tricky estimate. Figure out the number of minutes in a year and do some division." That's not what happened. Instead, my grandmother burst into tears. I sat in the back seat, didn't know what to do. While my grandmother was crying, my grandfather, who had been driving in the silence, pulled over onto the shoulder of the highway. He got out of the car and came around and opened my door, waited for me to follow. Was I in trouble? My grandfather was a highly intelligent and quiet man. He had never said a harsh word to me. Maybe it was to be the first time. Or maybe he would ask that I get back in the car and apologize to my grandmother. I had no experience in this realm with my grandparents, and no way to gauge what the consequences might be. We stopped beside the trailer. He looked at me. After a bit of silence, he gently, calmly said, "Jeff, one day you'll understand that it's harder to be kind than clever." What I want to talk to you about today is the difference between gifts and choices. Cleverness is a gift. Kindness is a choice. Gifts are easy. They are given after all. Choices can be hard. You can seduce yourself with your gift if you are not careful. And if you do, it will probably be to the detriment of your choices. This is a group with many gifts. I'm sure one of your gifts is a gift of smart and capable brain. I'm confident that's the case because admission is competitive. And if they are not, some sense that you're clever, the dean of admission wouldn't have let you in. Your smart will also come in handy because you will travel in land of marvels. We human, plotting as we are, will astonish ourselves. Would invent ways to generate clean energy and a lot of it. Atom by atom, we assemble small machines can enter cell walls and make repairs. This month comes the extraordinary, but inevitable news that we will synthesize the lives. In the coming year, we will not only synthesize it, but engineer it to specifications. I believe you even see us understand the human brain. Jules Verne, Mark Twain, Galileo, Newton, all the curious from the ages would have wanted to be alive, most of all right now. As a civilization, we will have so many gifts, just as you as individuals' gifts have so many individuals' gifts. As you sit before me, how will you use this gift? Will you take pride in your gift or pride in your choices? I got the idea to start Amazon 16 years ago. I came across the fact that web usage was growing at 2300% per year. I've never seen or heard of anything that grew that fast. And the idea of building online bookstore with millions of titles, something that simply couldn't exist in the physical world, was very exciting to me. I've just turned 30 years old, and I've been married for a year. I told my wife, Mackenzie, that I wanted to quit my job and go do this crazy thing that probably wouldn't work since most startups don't. And I wasn't sure what happened after that. Mackenzie, also Princeton grad and is sitting here in second row, told me I should go for it. As a young boy, I'd been a garage inventor. I did invented automatic gate closer out of cement-filled tires, a soda cooker that didn't work very well out of aluminum foil and umbrella and aluminum foil, baking pan alarms to interrupt my siblings. I'd always wanted to be an inventor, and she wanted me to follow my passion. I was working at a financial firm in New York City with a bunch of very smart people, and I had a brilliant boss I much admired. I went to my boss, and I told him that I was going to start a company selling books on the internet. He took me on a long walk in Central Park, listened carefully to me, and finally said, "That sounds like a really good idea, but it would be even better idea for someone who didn't already have a good job." That logic made some sense to me. He convinced me to think about it for 48 hours before making final decisions. Seeing that light, it really was a difficult choice, but ultimately, I decided I had to give it a shot. I didn't think I'd regret trying and failing, and I suspected that I would always be haunted. The decision to not try at all. After much consideration, I took the let's say path to follow my passion, and I'm proud of the choice. Tomorrow, in a very real sense, your life, the life you author from scratch on your own, begins. How will you use your gift? What choices will you make? Will you nurture, be a guide, or will you follow your passions? Will you follow dogma, or will you be original? Will you choose a life of ease or a life of service and adventure? Will you wield under criticism, or will you follow your convictions? Will you bluff it out when you are wrong, or will you apologize? Will you guard your heart against rejection, or will you act when you fall in love? Will you play it safe, or will you be a little bit swashbuckling? When it's tough, will you give up, or will you be a relentless? Will you be a cynic, or will you be a builder? Will you be a clever at the expense of others, or will you be a kind? I will have the prediction. When you are 80 years old, and in a quiet moment of reflection, narrating for only yourself the most personal version of your life story. The telling that will be most compact and meaningful will be the series of choices you have made. In the end, we are our choices. Build yourself a great story. Thank you and good luck.